it's off again. Hello, so this is our second day reading first story, I should say, in this collection of short stories by Roman Rudin. So the collection is called Strange Occurrence in the Region of the Heart. So it's approximately 10 stories, I believe it is. So let's go over to the first one on my Kindle. Here we go. And the title here is this French name, Lautréamont. Lautréamont. That's how I'm pronouncing it anyway. So I think we decided that Giuseppe was going to read the first part of the text over here. Is that okay, Giuseppe? Read the first block over here.
Okay, thank you.
Is that okay? Thank you.
At the very beginning of the century, when the internet had not yet banned, a curious work came into my hands by an unknown inventor who claimed that he had constructed an instrument which could transmit small, uniform objects any distance using existing lines of communication. In his article, the author described in detail the operating principle of this device, presented some drawings, and declared that the first experiments had been successful. He had managed to transmit a silver ingot of about 10 grams from his laboratory in France to his other laboratory in Argentina. The silver atoms had been turned in the transformer into streams of free electrons, protons and neutrons, and passed through the wires to the same apparatus at the other end of the world, where they were once again turned into atoms.
Yes. So this is the W area, isn't it? Down the very bottom of it. So wires, world, where. That's the tricky W one. Okay. And I think it tripped someone else up yesterday, didn't it? So that was a good reading though. I'm sort of making fun of you, but you actually did quite well, I should say. Um, the first time I read this, it wasn't particularly good, so you did very well. Okay, so anything you want to go over again there, or anything you want to ask about, I should say?
No.
Not really. Okay, that's pretty clear. That's good. That's good. So what did I notice? Um, Woe betide me, but I noticed that you missed out that word there, the bean. You sort of said yet banned, missed out the bean bit. But we all make mistakes. I certainly make them. I'm sort of joking back to the comments on the YouTube video, I suppose, really, as doing here. What else? Oh, I think when you said article, you made a sort of a huh, sort of a heavy breathing sound here, as if there was perhaps an H. So it was something like in his particle, sort of like that, something like that. Um, so, so if I just read that little from the in down to device, if I read that bit again, so in his article, the author described in detail the operating principle of this device. So I know it's tempting, put an H there, put an H here perhaps, but no, we don't. If you want to practice that again, you can do.
Okay. In his article, the author described in detail the operating principle of this device.
Yeah, spot on. That's it. Yes, very good. Um, and with laboratory, I think you're pretty good how you were saying it. Now, I've said it sort of in an American way just then, I would suggest. So, but the British way, as you probably know, is laboratory. Laboratory. Do you want to just say those again? Laboratory.
Yeah, laboratory.
Yeah, Yeah, that's good. That's pretty good, I would say. Yeah. There was a couple of other things. I can't see where they are now. Oh, yes. So going back to the top again, up here, and the third line. So, so this word here, this unknown, unknown. It just, I think it didn't slip out of your mouth quite correctly, I would say. So if I just read those few words again around there. So, a curious work came into my hands by an unknown inventor. So, by an unknown inventor. Just that word there, unknown. Do you want to do those few words again around there? So,
Yeah,
unknown.
unknown,
Yes, yes, that's it.
unknown.
Yeah, that's it. That's just perfect. That's perfect. Yes, it must have been just a one-off slip up. That's okay. Um, does anyone else have any queries or questions about this little bit here we've just read, including yourself, of course, Giuseppe?
Or maybe if you want to
Hmm.
help me with electrons.
Yes, okay, yes, actually, that's the bit was just going to reread that bit there. So all the W's down here was well worth going through again. So yeah, maybe from the silver atoms. Yes. So if I just read this bit here through from the silver atoms down to the bottom, and then it's your go. But again, it was quite good actually. But the W's is a tricky sound, isn't it? So let's just do that again. So the silver atoms had been turned in the transformer into streams of free electrons, protons, and neutrons, and passed through the wires to the same apparatus. You could say apparatus or apparatus. There's a couple of ways of saying apparatus, really. At the other end of the world, where they were once again turned into atoms. So electrons, protons, and neutrons. I think it was pretty good when you said that there. So yeah, over to you. Your go. So over to you.
Yeah. The silver atoms had been turned in the transformer into streams of free electrons, protons, and neutrons, and passed through the wires to the same apparatus at the other end of the world, where they were once again turned into atoms.
Hmm. Yes. S- There's an extra space there, isn't there? The gap there is slightly wider than there. So I wonder if this was going to be worded slightly differently. So it's interesting. It's slightly. I almost want to read it slightly differently, but that was a good reading. That was a good reading. Well done. Yes, I got no comments at all. So do you feel confident with electrons and protons now and
Yeah, yeah,
neutrons? Yeah,
electrons, protons, and neutrons.
electrons.
Okay,
Yeah, that's it.
thank you, thank you.
That's it. Good. I think I've heard. So I would say apparatus. I'm just what's the other way? Is it apparatus? Is it? Let's, let's see if there's two ways of saying it. So apparatus. Oh, utopia still in there. Apparatus. Let's spell that right. Yeah, there we go. So, no, if you're doing an experiment, often you would use apparatus. There does appear to be two ways. So apparatuses are two ways. Let's listen to how they say it.
apparatus,
Apparatus. Really overdoing that bit there. Apparatus. And what's his other way? Apparatus, is it?
apparatus,
Oh, apparatus. Oh, my goodness. Let's try again.
apparatus,
Apparatus. I would say I hear virtually nobody say that second way. Apparatus. Or virtually nobody. Probably people who are quite wealthy and are in a higher class might say this other way, I suspect. But most people say it the first way, apparatus. So, whoops. So it might be the setup you use to do an experiment. If you were seeing the melting point of some chemical or other, that might be the apparatus you used. But it could also be the organization or a system or network or structure. So it doesn't just have to be a sort of a chemical operation or a chemical test or something. So there's a couple of different ways of using the word, I should say. Okay, so Apparatus, I would suggest. Okay. Okay. So thanks very much, Giuseppe.
Thank you.
So anyone else have any questions, do ask. Don't hold back. Okay. So Michael, I think this time, is it okay if you read this what's on the right now this time? Because you didn't read that
Absolutely.
last. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely okay.
Okay. You'll go.
Uh, the system of equations describing the process took up millions of pages, and it was hard for me to imagine what kind of genius this was that could fill up so many reams of paper. After a few years, when scientific and technological progress had been tweaked and refined a bit more, and it had become possible to transmit products made of different materials in the same way, online trading reached its peak, and the level of well being was measured by the size of individual transformers. The process of transmitting objects, which had previously taken years, needed 10 years to Lautréamont needed 10 years to transfer his silver ingot to Argentina, took only hours, then only seconds, as new, as new transference technologies were invented. After Lautréamont became the richest man in the world, he began to control its destiny. Transformation predetermined a new phenomenon, compilation.
Mm, that's right. Then there's half a sentence which doesn't make
This,
sense to
this,
read. Yeah. There we go. That's good. That's good. Well done. It's not, I don't find it entirely obvious what's being said in these last few words, really. But that was a good reading. Well done. It's slightly, I find it difficult to understand sometimes, this story. But if it was too easy to understand, it wouldn't be interesting. The fact that it's slightly harder to understand than you would expect, that's what makes it a little bit more absorbing, I suppose, perhaps. So anything you want to go back over again there, Michael, that you want to practice
uh,
again, or meanings, etc. We did this
yeah,
yesterday.
hard understanding the last paragraph.
Mm,
After Lautréamont became the richest man in the world, he began to control its destiny.
yeah. It's a little bit like with poetry, the words are used slightly unexpectedly, and there's a certain element of unexpected words and unexpected ideas here. So I think maybe you just have to accept that. But anything in particular you don't understand about this here? Do you mean you just don't understand it at all, or this bit down here, or? So after Lautréamont became the richest man in the world, he began to control its destiny. Isn't that a little bit like, say, Elon Musk? Is not the he might be the richest man in the world. I don't know, but he does seem to have an awful lot of power. You know what he says on Twitter or X has an immense amount of effect on people, doesn't it? So don't you see it's a little bit like that, maybe?
Yeah, maybe only Lautréamont only know the technology of this, uh,
Yeah. How
and
these transformers things work,
yeah,
yes. Yeah. Or transmitters. I'm not sure. Is it? I forgot what they're called. Compile. Oh. That's right. In the first part of the story, they start out as transformers or transmitters, I think, don't they? But by the end, it's compilers, isn't it? I think. There we go. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So I think that makes sense at the bottom. But the bit just after that, where it says transformation, predetermined, a new phenomenon, compilation. It doesn't I don't doesn't quite gel in my mind, that bit there. I think I can work out what they're saying. It doesn't quite gel for me. Okay, so again, it was a good reading, I would have said, to be honest. Good reading. I think you did rush it very slightly though, but maybe because you feel that you know the story a little bit better because we read it yesterday. What did I notice? There was something up here. Oh, I've turned a page over. Is that what I've
And,
done?
yes,
I
yes, yes.
wonder why, why I was struggling to find anything. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. I think I think reams of paper came up yesterday, didn't it? It didn't quite sound. It didn't sound quite right. The word reams. So I think you discovered yesterday that a one ream is 500 sheets of paper, didn't you? You think you found that out yesterday?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so yeah. If I just read that last bit, so um, this. I think maybe the word genius as well. So let's do those two words. So, and it was hard for me to imagine, and the word imagine as well, I think. And it was hard for me to imagine what kind of genius this was that could fill up so many reams of paper. So the words are, the tricky words for you, I think, there were imagine, genius, and reams. So do you want to read that last part again? That's what half a paragraph there. So, and it was from down to about there.
And and it was hard for me to imagine what kind of genius this was that could fill up so many reams of paper.
Yeah, your reams of paper. That's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. Reams. So here it's saying reams of paper, but we might sometimes talk about reams of other small things as well. Sometimes there are reams of them. We might not say what it is, but saying it's a lot of something. But but in this case, technically, it's normally used this word reams to count exactly 500 sheets, as we found out yesterday, of paper. I thought it was much less than that. So you had that spot on. That's good. But you do need a little bit more practice on the genius. I think the G is tripping up a little bit because the G here seemed to trip you up a little bit, and the G here in imagine seemed to trip you up a little bit. So maybe just those two words would do. So imagine, imagine, and genius. Imagine and genius. Do you want to say both those again? So imagine genius. You'll go, Michael.
Imagine genius,
It's perfect.
imagine
Yeah,
genius,
yeah, that's it. Oh, not, the last one just then. No, you lost it a little bit. So genius. So genie, and then us. Genius. I think.
genius,
Yeah, that's it.
genius.
Genius. You are a genius. Well done, Michael. That's good. Very, very good. So, genius. Okay. And once again with the imagine, maybe. Imagine.
Imagine,
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. So we took out the IN, that would be image, wouldn't it? So imagine, image. So, okay. Anything else? Anything else that you want to go back over again? I'm sure there was other things. Yeah, so it was this H word down here. So it's a little bit tricky, this paragraph, because we have this sort of brackets, then a comma, and then the story goes on again. So it's quite a bit tricky to read. So maybe we'll read this little bit again. I'll read it to you. Um, so there's a certain flow in the story, and when we come to the brackets, this is sort of an aside. It sort of pumps in a little bit of extra information that you almost don't need to know, but it's good to know. It helps you to understand things. And that's why they've used a bracket there. And so when I'm going to read it, and hopefully when I've read it before, I try to say it in a slightly different voice. Perhaps I lower my voice or just say it in a slightly different way. Maybe I speed it up very slightly or make it slightly a lower or slightly higher voice, tone of my voice, I should say. Um, so because it's an aside, it's something extra, something sort of, it's a distraction. So we don't want to spend too much time on it, sort of a thing. So we say it slightly differently. So here we go. I'll read it too, then it's your go, Mike, if that's okay. And it's sort of to practice the word hours in particular. So hours, hours. So the H is silent, basically, isn't it? Of course, there. So I'll try to read this through now. So the process of transmitting objects, which had previously taken years, Lautréamont needed 10 years to transfer his silver ingot to Argentina, took only hours, then only seconds, as new transference technologies were invented. I didn't read that particularly well, but so over to you. Your go, Michael.
The process of transmitting objects, which had previously taken years. Lautréamont needed 10 years to transfer his silver ingot to Argentina. Took only hours, then only seconds, as new transference technologies were invented.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I think you're better than me there. Actually, that was good. Yes. Um, and I think your years was better as well. I think the first time you read that through, first reading, your years, you're a little bit too heavy on the Y sound. Years. So yeah, it's slightly flatter and it is slightly tricky. Um, I think we had these yesterday calls, didn't we? So let's um year. So just try that again. So years, maybe at the top of the page there. Years.
Years, years,
Years. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, you're losing it a little bit there. So maybe just try the so yeah, just the word yes. Yes.
yes,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's spot on. It's that same intensity of yeah at the beginning you want at the top
yes,
here as well, I would say. Yes. So years, yes. Um, this is a sort of, isn't it? This is a sort of a made-up word. Yes. Have I spelled this right? No. Yes. Yes. So this. So this here is yesteryear, which is a mix-up between yesterday and year. So yesterday is a sort of a real word, yesterday. But if you put yesterday, if you get rid of the day and put year in there, it's like saying what happened last year, sort of a thing, yesteryear, or back in the past. So when you say yesteryear, you're talking about the past sometime, not necessarily a year back, but it could be 1 year, but it could be earlier as well. So if I take the S off of there, maybe. So I just go through all of these four words here. And so anyone who struggles with this y sound at the beginning, might be useful to do. I don't know. If I go from the bottom up, actually, might be a better way of doing it. So yesterday, yesteryear, yes, and then finally year. So I'll do it again. And then maybe it's your go after I've done it this time, Michael. So yesterday, yesteryear, yes, year. So your go, Michael, from the bottom up if you can. Yesteryear.
yesterday, yesterday,
Hmm.
yesteryear, yes, yeah,
Yeah, I'd say all pretty good, and but your year was the what wasn't as good as all the rest of them. So it's still it's still year. Yeah. So I think the year was pretty good on the beginning when you said year, but then it was I guess it was the last part of that sound, the ear part of it. So let's just do the year maybe. So year, year.
yeah, yeah,
When you're saying to me, that sounds a little bit like you're saying this word, yeah, which is sort of like kind of an enthusiastic yes. If you say yeah, that's the meaning of that is an enthusiastic, very healthy yes sound. Yes, you're saying. But it sounds like you're saying this word, yeah, a little bit. So yeah, I guess it's a tricky sound. I hadn't realized that before, but okay, so oh dear. When I find a tricky sound, I go to the dictionary. So let's pop that into the dictionary and see what happens. So year after year, year round, year by year. Oh no, they always do this. Anniversary year. Maybe it's because they put a capital Y in. I don't know. Oh, year. Here we go. Um, Countable noun. A year is a period of 12 months or 365, 366 days, beginning on the 1st of January and ending la di da di da. So let's listen to them, how they say this word.
year,
Oh, very excited. Yeah. Yeah. Um, So they have a very, very small R up there, baby size R. So I think the point is that you could, some people do say the R sound very clearly. Some say it just very slightly, the R sound, and some miss it out in almost entirely. I think I miss it out in almost entirely. So let's listen to them again, and they say it very enthusiastically, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So do you want to give it a go, Michael? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, that sounded really good. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's overdoing it. So let's listen to him again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your go, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds really good, actually. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, yeah. That's it. That's it. Well done. And once again, yeah. Your go, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's really good, actually. That's good. Well done. Um, so maybe Giuseppe, perhaps you want to go through that on your own. I don't know. Or maybe when it's your go at the end, we can do this again if that's helpful. At the end of the class, maybe Giuseppe, if you're still with us, of course. Okay, let's go back to the article then. Okay, so anything else down here that anyone else has any queries or questions about, including yourself, Michael?
No, no, I haven't
Okay.
any questions.
Um, Yeah, I think that was the main ones. Um, there's always little slight things. It's in this sort of debate we're sort of going back over them again because with certain sounds you can say there's always a certain amount of variation always in sort of pronunciation. Some of it is sort of unimportant or just regional, and some of it is sort of just it just needs tightening up, I guess. So maybe there was one more word, but perhaps not two actually. So perhaps this word here, individual, individual. Do you just say it again? Individual.
Individual. Individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Individual. Individual.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's it. That's pretty much it, I would say. But let's practice a little bit more. So individual. There we go. I spelled it correctly. Well done, Tony. So I see at the end, it's got dual at the end. Dual. Duel. So
Dual.
if you have a duel, it's where two people face off against each other and have a fight. Maybe they fire a gun at each other or they have swords or something. But that's not really what this is about. So this is about one person, if anything, not two. So it might have dual there, but it's just about one person. So I've hit enter, nothing's happened. Let's try clicking there. So individual. So let's see how they say it. There's plural, of course, there. Let's listen to them.
individual,
Yeah, individual. Yeah, he's just. I think I can hear the L at the end. Yes. So let's listen to them again. Then maybe just press it again, Michael. So
individual,
individual. You'll go, Michael.
Individual.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Really. Yeah, that's pretty good. I would say. Yeah, that's good. That's very good. Well done. Yes. Okay. Well done. If that's okay, we'll move on to the next person. If that's okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Good. Good. We haven't quite sorted out this last paragraph down the bottom, this strong, but we'll come back to that maybe at the end. So, Ruslan, I think you read this last part before, didn't you? You read this bit before.
No,
So,
I read
oh,
the second one.
oh, you read,
That
oh,
that yeah,
that we
Michael.
just read. That we just read. Okay, yes,
Yeah,
okay, my mistake. Okay.
no,
So Ruslan, is it okay if you read this section here this time?
yeah. I think it is okay. Yeah,
So just at the beginning, it starts out in the middle of a sentence here. So if I go back one page again, we just see what the last few words are. So the last few words are there was no. So you can just start off
yeah,
with that bit there. So there was
yeah.
no, and it's over to you.
The,
You'll go.
yeah, there was no longer any need to move elementary practicals over a great distance. Since a method had been discovered of uh, compiling any object out of elements that were all around. So piles of metals, polymers, and other materials were transformed in a second into cars, microwaves, and refrigerators. The omnipotent Lautréamont declared the start of a new post-information age for civilization. Energy, energy produced by mankind used to operate compilers on a global scale almost equaled the cost of lighting, heating, movement of all modes of transport, ma- maintenance of life, and producing all kinds of goods, including the compilers themselves. Only a few more years were needed before these processes would be redundant, when all energy would be used for compilation. The law of the conservation of matter had an appended section known as Lautréamont's theorems, according to which matter exists in the form of information.
That's it. Yes, that's it. Well done.
Yeah,
You did very, very well. Very, very well. Well done.
yeah, thank you.
It was a bit hard for you, I guess, was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, but it's good practice, I would say. I would say good practice. So were there many words there you didn't understand or you don't know the meaning of? Pronunciation was pretty good on the whole, I would say. So, but any words in
Yeah,
particular?
some of them, yeah,
Mm.
I don't understand exactly. Yeah, it is yeah, mm, mhm, these materials,
So
the
micro. I'm sure you understand microwaves.
microwaves, yeah,
Some words like polymers are a little bit technical, but most British people would have vague idea what polymers were. So if something's a polymer, you're basically saying plastics. It's made out of something made out of plastic. You could say. Does that make
yeah,
so? Any other words?
yeah. This is omnipotent. I
Right.
don't know. Did I say it correct? Omnipotent?
Um, we came up yesterday. You sort of
Yeah,
could,
yeah.
you could say it that way, but most of the time it's pronounced slightly differently. Well, yeah, omnipotent. Yes, is that what you said? Omnipotent.
Omnipotent.
Yes.
Omnipotent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Mm.
yeah, I understand this. Yeah. I was scared about pronunciation. Yeah, of this word.
Omnipotent.
Yeah, omnipotent.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Any other words?
mm, mm, how about conservation? This is on the top. Yeah.
Yeah, on the bottom.
Conservation.
Yeah, that's pretty close actually. I would say it's good enough almost, I would say. So conservation. Conservation.
Conservation.
Yeah.
It is, what does it mean? It is a safe, yeah, for future probably, no?
Yeah, kind of,
Or,
yes. That's sort of
yeah.
it. So if you conserve something, you're saving it for the future. That's pretty much what you
Ah,
could say.
yeah, yeah.
There's a few different ways of using it, but they sort of boil down to the same sort of meaning. That's it.
Yeah. And how about uh, a pendant? A pendant, yeah? Or
Yeah, we don't, not quite.
an append
It doesn't really get a great deal of use, this word, in this
oh,
form anyway. So appended, it means.
pendant.
So I'd say it's quite a rarely used word. So I wouldn't spend too long worrying about this particular word.
Mm.
But it
Yeah.
means if you want to hang something onto something else, you append it. It doesn't really get much
Mm.
use, really. But in this sense here, the idea here is that there's there's a theorem or a law, and they've stuck another bit onto the end of it. They've hung another bit onto this law that already exists. So they've appended one new law onto an old law. That's what they're saying, really. That's what appended
Mm.
means. So they've pinned a new law onto the end of an old one. That's really what they're saying. But it doesn't get a great deal of
Mhm.
use as a word. I did notice when you said maintenance, that's pretty good. Maintenance. I liked how you said that. That was good. That's a bit of a long and a tricky word.
Yeah.
Um,
Maintenance.
maybe com so this word here, compilers, that's in this bit that we've read a few times, or similar words are. So there's compilers there, and up here is sort of the continuous version, compiling, compiling. Do you want to say both of those if you can, once again? So at the top here, so compiling. Do you want to say that again?
Yeah.
Compiling.
Compiling.
And again, compiling.
Compile. Compiling.
Yeah, yeah. And maybe the other one down here. So compilers, compilers.
Compilers.
Okay. So if you compile something, as you said yesterday, you're sort of building it up gradually. So if you're putting a selection of different pieces of music together, and it's several different bits of music, perhaps they're pop music or anything, each track you could say is one part of the compilation. So you're compiling it by bringing all these bits of music together to make a one big collection. That's what compiling is about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 But here they're talking about making you know, things from they're compiling them from their smallest elementary parts. So I just said elementary, and that's used at the top up here. So are you okay
Mm.
with the meaning of these words, elementary particles?
Elementary particles.
Yeah. Do you know what
Mm.
they mean, or what that's referring to?
Elementary, it means like a beginner, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the most
Uh,
fundamental beginning. That's it.
yeah, yeah, fundamental. And particles,
Hmm.
it is something particles, comfortable, yeah? Or no? Partic
Comfortable.
Comfortable, no? Yeah, is
Um,
it right? No?
if I just go back a page, if I go back one page, back on this page where we started, it talks about electrons, protons, neutrons. I'm sure you've heard of those things, have you? Electrons, protons.
Yeah, I heard, yeah.
In this story, they're talking about these things, electrons, protons, neutrons, as fundamental particles. That is
Mm,
one kind of description of
yeah,
these things, the
yeah.
fundamental
Mm,
particles. Some people say these aren't really fundamental. Some people would say these other things are fundamental. But in this story, the electrons and protons and neutrons are the fundamental particles.
mhm,
Yeah, so again, so elementary particles is a bit of a technical term. It's technical. It's sort of like jargon. So similarly, polymers, as you said at the beginning, that's a bit of a technical term. So if you're a
mm,
chemist, you would definitely know what polymers were. But most people in going in the street, most shoppers outside of a shop might struggle to come up with the exact meaning of the word polymers. But they're using them here, and so we have to find out. So I might be confusing you a little bit. So any other words there you want to go back over again?
Mm, how about almost equaled? Yeah. Did
Yes,
I
that
say it correct? Yeah.
here when you read it out, yeah, you're pretty close. I think the double L might have tripped you up a little bit. But when you said it just then, that's pretty much spot on, I would say. So this word here, exactly, pretty much you were saying. So that's equaled, equaled.
Equals.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, equaled.
Okay.
Okay, the ed on the end. That's it. And of course, so we were. So do you remember what we talked about last year? Yesterday,
Yeah.
with this
Yeah.
word. So
Yeah.
what did we say yesterday, if you remember, when we had a sort of an equal?
Yeah, it was a little bit different, and
Yes.
it sound equation. Yeah,
Spot
we
on.
spoke.
Well done. That's it. Yes, we had
Yeah,
equation yesterday, didn't we? Yeah. So can I spell it correctly myself? Yeah. So that's it. Yeah. Equation. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Well done. That's good. Okay. Perhaps we'll leave it there. There's always more things we can talk about, but we have to come to an end at some point. Okay. Although having said that, maybe that one word down the bottom there. So we said about compilers, didn't we? Compilers, if you remember. And then up here,
yeah,
it's compiling, sort of the continuous version. And so there's this version of the same word, basically. So this is, I would pronounce this as compilation. Compilation. Do you want to just say it again there? Compilation.
compilation,
Yeah, So I'm saying then I'm saying pill. So pill, and then something like Asian, I suppose. Compilation. Compilation. Do you want to try it again? Compilation. Compilation.
compilation,
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
compilation.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was really spot on. Well on. Yeah. So a lot of it's quite said quite quickly, isn't it? But I think we're making all of those sounds. That's it. So you did very well there. So okay. So does anyone have anything else to say about this little bit here? Otherwise, on to Carlo. Any other questions about this bit here? Great. That's the correct answer, everybody. So it's over to Carlo. It's your go. So this is the bit we haven't read so far. This is new. We haven't read it yesterday, and we haven't read it today, of course. So you have the honor reading the new part of the text, Carlo. Over to you if you're still with us. Starts with 10 years. Your
Okay.
go.
So 10 years went by after I first read, or I first read, maybe,
Better.
Lautréamont's article, when the great inventor announced that he had successfully transformed a living object for the first time. Lautréamont himself had become a laboratory rat, appearing in front of the public for the first time in many years at one of Buenos Aires' arenas, with his back to the enthusiastic audience and not showing his face. Further time elapsed, and the whole universe was presented in the form of mathematical equations and prepared for transformation or compilation. And so Lautréamont declared himself God. At every turn, he was creating new universes in place of old ones, where the cosmos is changed according to the laws known only to him. As before, no one saw his face, and soon everyone stopped saying his name. The theorem appended to the law of the conservation of matter became known simply as its part 2.
And I've turned over.
Not long ago, the great inventor banned the internet, and we can only guess what he might be doing now. Soon, everyone will forget the real state of things, and the greatest invention of our century will become another legend.
Hmm Well done. Yes, that is nicely read, actually. Well done. Okay, so I'll go back a page.
Mhm.
Okay, yes. So what do we say? Anything you want to ask about here?
Mm,
A good reading is little for me
maybe
to
maybe
mention.
enthusiastic. Maybe
Yeah, the TH is a bit
I did not
tricky.
pronounce well.
I didn't note it. I wasn't going to mention it actually. But yes, the th sound might be a bit tricky in the middle. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
enthusiastic. So it's not a very strong th, but do you want to give it
Mm-hmm.
a go? Enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic.
Oh yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it. That was said
Mm-hmm.
very enthusiastically, I would say. Very good.
So elapsed.
Yeah, that's it. Yes,
Okay.
elapsed. Yeah,
Elapsed.
yeah.
Yeah.
Time passes by. You can say elapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Uh, Cosmos. That's good.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Cosmos.
Uh, Theorem.
I, I thought
T
you read
O
it. Yeah, it wasn't. It was pretty good. Yeah, but is it so? Theorem is. Most people say
Theorem. Okay.
theorem. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Mm.
Maybe
Okay.
appended to. I think
Mm-hmm.
so. Appended, perhaps.
Appended. Mm. Maybe
Um,
I pronounced well before.
I think you overdid the P's really. So appended, appended.
Appended.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Uh-huh.
That's spot on. Yeah, that was good. Maybe over the page. Wasn't very much there. Yeah, I thought that was quite good. That was good. Very good. So, so what's the meaning legend here? So, and the
Mm.
greatest invention of our century will become another legend. So what does that mean, legend? What's that?
Uh, Legend is an example, no? Uh,
Kind of.
is a metaphor
Hmm.
because he become a great man. Uh, the meaning of this sentence
Okay.
is that the greatest invention of this century will become another legend. So this great invention
Hmm.
about him uh, becomes something very important. Uh, uh,
Um, I think you're talking around it, but you're
mm,
sort of not quite getting to the nub of the matter. There's probably a couple of different ways of asking that question as well. So let's just look at the word legend to keep it simple. So some people say leg end, because it looks like two words put together, but
legend.
yeah.
Mm,
But it isn't really leg end, of course. So it's pronounced legend. There we go.
mhm.
Just as you said, Ray. So let's listen to them.
legend,
Legend. So a
Legend.
legend is a very old and popular story that may be true. And really, that's the point. It may be true. But a lot
Oh.
of people would say if it's a legend, then it probably isn't true. That's what most
Ah,
people would say.
right. Okay, okay, okay,
A
okay.
legend is
Understood.
for most people, it says here actually. So for most people, it's a myth or a story or a tale. They've even had the word fiction. So if it's fiction, it's completely made up. So when it's legend, there's this idea it probably isn't true, but it might just be true, or some bits of it might be true, something like that. If you refer to someone, so a person, as a legend, you mean that they are very famous and admired by a lot of people. So there is these two ideas here. So a person could be a legend, but they are a true person. There's nothing really about being true. Here it's sort of saying they're a fantastic person, a famous person.
Mm,
So there's two ideas there. But
okay.
if you go back to the story, it's not really talking about the person. I think it's talking about the
The
invention. There we go. So
invention. Hmm.
the thing itself became something like a myth,
Mm,
almost untrue, which is
okay.
extremely weird. So I'll just read that again to make that clear. I think it is clear, but I'll read it again
Hmm.
anyway. So soon everyone will forget the real state of things. So the real state.
Hmm.
So it started to become a myth or not quite believed. And the greatest invention, which is a true thing, of
Hmm.
our century will become another legend.
Another, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the key word.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
another legend. Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, so maybe he was the first legend, you could perhaps say in a
Mm.
sense, but then again, it did say that they no longer said his name, didn't they? At one point, didn't they? I think That's it. Oh, and so Lautréamont declared himself God. Wow. He went mad, Craig, didn't he? Clearly, I suppose, didn't he? Okay, so we're still talking about pronunciation, really, aren't we? So theorem did that. Maybe that word there. I think you rushed it very slightly, or you said it in a way that I wasn't really used to, I think. So I would say simply as mathematical. Mathematical. So I'm sort of missing out the E, I guess. So I think some people do bounce on that E. So mathematical. But let's listen to them. Let's go to the dictionary. So I'm probably wrong. I know that. Where's the T gone? Mathematical. Here we go. Is that it? Yeah, there we go. Mathematical ability, mathematical algorithm, mathematical. Yeah, so they definitely pronounce the E sound, but it's more of a schwa sound, I guess. So let's listen to them.
Mathematical.
Do you want to give that a go? So mathematical.
Mathematical.
Yeah, that's fantastic, I think. That's great. Yeah. Okay. I think a lot of people will drop that E, especially if they're having to say the word on a regularly and constantly saying it. So probably mathematicians would miss out that E because they're sick of saying it, I would suggest. So mathematicians would miss it out. So I've just said mathematicians, so I'm sort of missing out that E sound in the middle, which is a bit naughty, but I think that's probably what you'll find in reality. So anything else that you want to ask about there?
Okay.
Labs. Yes. So maybe the capital here. Is this capital? No. So Buenos. So it has the that little apostrophe outside of the S.
Mm-hmm.
So it really, by doing that, it really wants you to make like a double S sound. So
Mm.
if I try and say it, I probably get this wrong myself. So Buenos Aires is something
Mm.
like that. So not just Buenos Aires, but I can't say it properly then.
Mhm.
So it's got these areas on the end because
Yeah.
it owns the arenas, I guess. So do you want to give it one? You'll probably be better than me at this. So do you want to
Yeah.
give it one more go?
Buenos Aires is
Yeah, that's it.
arenas.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a bit tricky, unexpected,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just a minor detail, really. Um, I think your laboratory was quite good. Did you want to say it again just for fun? So
Yeah.
laboratory.
Laboratory.
Yeah, that's it. So when it says um, Lautréamont himself had become a laboratory rat, what does he mean by that? Because
Yeah,
he's
that
going to call
yes.
himself God. So how can he be a
Mm-hmm.
rat and a god at the same time? This is
Yeah. Because he spent all the time in in that venue, working, studying, making
right.
experiment, and so he became a laboratory rat. He never get out from there.
So a bit like rat race. Sometimes we talk about
Yeah.
work as being the rat race.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think that's sort
maybe.
of I think that's mixing two different
Uh-huh.
ideas, really. So when you say a laboratory rat, it sort of means a little bit of what you're saying, but it's more that you're experimenting on yourself if you become a laboratory rat.
Ah,
So you're
okay, okay,
doing
okay, okay.
experiments on yourself, like I don't know, you're testing something, and you're putting it on yourself or injecting it into yourself to see if it works, which is a bit dangerous, really, because it might not work and it might kill you. So and that's why they use rats rather than themselves. Rather the rat died than they died, and so that's what they really mean by that idea there. So I was messing about a little bit, but you could say there is an interesting idea that you never see the guy, so maybe he is like a little rat running around. So I don't think it's quite saying that, but in the back of my mind, I do have a certain agreement with that. Anything else you want to say about that, or anybody else? Any other questions we just read? So that's the end of the story we've read there. So it does conclude this one. Anything else?
I would
So
like to ask you about this pronunciation. Father time elapsed.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, further time elapsed. Elapsed.
Further, yeah.
Um, there's a you technically no, but I can understand why you're
Yeah.
saying that. It's sort of
Mm.
okay to do what you're doing, but so let's put this into the dictionary. So there's two words now, isn't there? So let's look at further. So I would say that is further. So there's farther and further. I've got hiccups, excuse me. Have I spelled that correctly? I have. Oh my goodness, my spelling's improved. So let's look at a few of the words that come up with it. So further a career. Sometimes if you want to improve your career or move your improve your position in your job, you could say you talk about furthering your career. That's why it says further your career. Further a cause. So if you have a cause for something, like you want to help homeless people, you want to do things to improve that situation for those. So you might talk about furthering a cause or further a cause. So that's some of the ways of using it. So let's click search. So there's different ways of using the word here. So let's listen to how they say it.
further,
Further, yeah? Do you want to practice that for a second, Ruslan? Further.
Father.
Ah,
Father.
so you're saying a similar word, similar but different. So if there was an
Yeah.
A there, that would be something like father, I would say. Father. So here we go. So we'll look at that word in a second. So let's just do this word,
further,
further. We'll try again. Further. So further. You'll go, Ruslan?
Father.
Oh, that sounds
Father.
like it, yes. Further. So, an animal has a fur coat. That's really the sort of sound we're saying at the beginning. Further. Yeah, further. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's to do
Okay.
with it's the same sort of idea to what you were just saying. But if we just quickly read this bit here then. So it says, further is a comparative form of far. Now you were saying father, weren't you? So that's
Yeah.
far, isn't it? So that they are related, but sort of different, makes sense. It is also a verb, so it's a little bit confusing. Sometimes you use, depends on what you're trying to talk, what you're talking about. If you're talking about certain things, you say father, and in other things you use so it's further and farther, if it makes sense. There's two. Oh, blast. I'm not going to explain that very well. Do forgive me. So let me tap it into the dictionary. Not in the dictionary. Let's tap it into the World Wide Web. Let's cheat. Have I spelled that correctly? So I can't really see what I'm tapping. I can't. I'm just sort of tapping meaninglessly into this into the. Oh, Copilot. I'm obviously on Bing here, so I'm on Bing. So it's saying farther and further. What is the difference? It's come up here. This is quite. Is here we go. So farther and further. They're the two words. So farther typically refers to physical distance. Yeah, that's spot on. Yes. How much farther is it? So we're walking along. We've got miles to go. How much farther do we have to go? But you possibly could say further as well, actually. But the idea is use farther in certain situations and farther and further in different places. Oh dear. So farther is more figurative distance or metaphorical. It's saying here, and I suppose that's true. Yeah, I think that's the correct way round, or at least I hope Copilot has got it correct. So I'm really being guided by them. But they're saying here the English uses it slightly different. The American English use it differently from us, I think, according to that. But I don't think that's true actually. But never mind. So that's something to look into, Ruslan. Okay, so bear that in mind. So
Yeah.
there's farther and further. They're two different words, but used. You sort of could mix them up, but certain people would notice you had it wrong. Wrong, I should say. Um, so, guys, what do you think about this little thing we've just read? The whole story. We've read the whole thing now. Did you expect it to end up with, and so Lautréamont declared himself God? Did you expect that?
No.
I didn't know. Yeah. Um, but I can understand how it happened, though, in a sense, of course.
Hmm.
I suppose there is the idea a little bit in there. Is saying maybe this is who the real God is. He's some person or being who discovered a way of making things, making everything, I guess, is the point. Not just microwaves, but and it does say somewhere here that he started creating universes. I mean, how you do that, I don't know, but yeah.
Hmm.
Buenos Aires, yes, Buenos Aires arenas. Any other comments, Michael, Giuseppe, Ruslan, Carlo?
No.
It is difficult to understand this short novel because there is the main character. His actions are described, but it seems that there are no other people in this scenario. So it seems that maybe decades pass over, and he uh, keeps doing experiments, doing something that maybe the other scientists are not interested in. And it is difficult to to read and to be convinced of this story. Yes, it is
But
weird.
But it makes me think a little bit. So I
Yeah.
agree with what you're saying. So 10 years went by, and so he makes another sort of step forward with his invention. And if you go back a few pages earlier back, I think it said Lautréamont needed 10 years to transfer his first income. So one experiment took 10 years, but then eventually it took only hours and then only seconds. So it sped up incredibly. So from years to hours and then to seconds, that's an incredible experience, one thing, I should say. And of course, in the beginning, he supposedly wrote out millions of pages, and that must take an incredible length of time. So there is a long period of time is passing by, decades upon decades, just as you say. Um, so there's another 10 years here. 10 years went by after that. So, but it makes me think a little bit of Einstein. Mentioned him yesterday as well, didn't we? Einstein. But I think originally, when he first came out with some of his first theorems, people couldn't quite understand what he was saying. It was so unexpected, so from a different, everything from a completely different angle that no one could quite understand what he was saying. He was like, it was in a class all of his own. It was in a field all of his own, and no one could quite catch up to where he was. I can sort of see or put Lautréamont in that same sort of field, really. And by this story, at least, he's the only person making any discoveries in that area, how to transmit things. But I suppose, in truth, he would almost certainly be working with some other scientists and colleagues and people pushing buttons and whatever and typing things up. But then again, maybe he's the only one who really understands it from its basic particles, its elementary particles to the end, I guess. Oh, one thing I noticed in the story was where, so he does this experiment where he transmits himself from, is that right? So that's right, he became a laboratory rat himself. So he stepped into the machine and in some way transmitted himself to somewhere else, didn't he? But when he turned up, when he got turned up at that other place, which was somewhere in Buenos Aires, in an arena, so he's obviously a bit of a showman because he's doing it almost for show for other people. He had his back to the enthusiastic audience. What's the significance of that? Why did he have his back turned when he appeared in the transmitter or the teleporter or whatever it is? Why was he turned his back to everybody? What do you think? So not showing his face. Why? It's a, so in a sense, it's there twice. It says he shows his back, doesn't show his face. So it's quite clear what's happened, but why? What's the significance of that?
Yeah, he he seems like a magician or something. So
Yes.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
because people could see just his back and maybe
Mm.
probably his mantle or
His coat or
his
something. Yes.
yeah clothes. Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting to say mantle. So that's a sort of a magician might wear a mantle, which is like a very large cloak or coat. That's it. Yes, over your shoulders, a mantle. That's it. But what struck me when I read that, so with his back to the enthusiastic audience, not showing his face, what struck me really was when we then come down a few lines later and it says, and so Lautréamont declared himself God. My understanding is of, so if you read the Bible, it says in there, the the Christian or the Hebrew Bible, it basically indicates that you can't look at God. You can't look at God's face. If you do, it kills you, sort of a thing.
Mhm.
And maybe that's sort of what's happening here. That's why he's not showing his face.
Yeah,
He's
or
got his back to
probably
everybody because you can't see his face. If you do, you will die. And that's my take on it anyway. That's my take.
Mm.
I think this story is very debatable,
Mm,
and you can choose any scenario,
mm,
any plots. What you know, there are huge variation of this interpretation of these uh, things. For
mm,
example, like yesterday, Giuseppe said about printer, three
mm, mm.
printers,
That's right. 3D printer, wasn't it?
3D,
Yeah.
3D printer. Yes, it's also you can transmit, and also when Lautréamont create own universe, it's also I can interpret this like, for example, social media now. Uh, Also, people create some universe, some groups, some
Mm,
society in this into this social medias, and no one know how works algorithm of this social media. Only
mm.
only owner of this social media, or for
Elon
example,
Musk or somebody. Yeah.
only yes, owner of Google, for example, know how works
Yeah. Yeah.
algorithm. So it's yeah, it's I think
Mm,
this story very exciting because you can think about it, and you can find many
parallels.
parallels. Yes,
Mm,
modern world.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still struck by this idea of at the beginning it mentions the internet, and at the very end, if I flick over the page, it says it ends sort of vaguely ends with the internet again, doesn't it? So not long ago, the great inventor banned the internet. Yes, I find that just blows my mind in a way. A strange thing to mention, I know, but at the beginning it said it hadn't yet been banned, and by the end of it, it is banned. So, and we said that yesterday as well, didn't we? I think. Whoops, that's fascinating. Yeah, I sort of agree with you, Michael. There's a lot in here hidden between the lines. It's just vaguely inferred, only just suggested sometimes, and it says much more than it's really written in a sense. There's a much bigger story sitting in here, I could say. You could say, I guess.
Yeah, but also we can see the story with the following the events that are happening nowadays. Because if we
Mm,
make the story simpler, he does some experiment at the very beginning. Then he changes the rule, and
mm,
finally he holds the power. So it is kind of an
mm,
escalation of events. So if we see what is happening in our world these days, yeah, we could have also draw a parallel with between the story and the world we are living in.
mm.
Guys, I leave to go. I need to go, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you,
See you
Carlo.
next time. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.
See you next time. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Carl. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Wow. I hadn't really thought about that, but that's spot on, isn't it? So what you were saying, Giuseppe, that there is an escalation, that things start out quite simple, very simple and lowly, and doesn't seem very important. But by the end of the story, everything is changed. It changes everything, which I guess you could say is a little bit like computers or the internet or perhaps Twitter or other things, that they don't seem very important until things almost get out of hand. And some people might point to AI, I guess. So there's elements of AI here too, isn't there? So some people think AI could become all powerful almost.
Yeah,
Well, here, of course,
exactly.
it's Lautréamont himself becoming all powerful. Wow. Hmm.
But yeah, I maybe I repeat myself, but I tried to know something more about the writer, but actually in the internet I didn't found anything about this writer. So I think it's very a kind of niche where this
Hmm.
these novels are, because yeah, probably just the translator knows this writer.
Hmm. Well, I understand that I might be wrong, of course, but I think the writer said he wanted. I think the writer himself is actually pretty good at English. He almost didn't really need a translator, but I think asked for three translators for these stories. So there's three different translators, I think, throughout the whole thing. I think the very first one is Tony, I believe. I think I'm right in saying that. And so he got several other translators and then sort of communicated with them a little bit to try to get exactly the meaning he wanted. So it wasn't just a translator doing it on their own, I understand. I hope I'm correct in saying that. I think the author contacted the translator and says, "Oh, do you think this is the right word, or could we use a different word?" And they sort of negotiated a little bit about it and
Mhm.
discussed it. So I think this is pretty much exactly what he wanted, I suspect. Well, it's as good as he could get it, I think. It's not sort of a rush job or something. Um, well, so I think maybe we'll leave it there. I think it's quite thought. I found it very thought provoking. A little, in some ways, a little bit unsatisfactory because it is so short. I want a little bit more. Um, so if I flick over, we come to the end of the work, and hopefully flick over again, we come to the next one. So I'm thinking about doing this one next week, and there's about 10 in total, I think, in here. So, and I've not even looked at this story. I've got no idea what happens in this particular one. And it starts out with the songs of Malodora. So it'd be interesting. That's what it's called, of course. Okay, but that's next week.
Mhm.
So tomorrow there's a class, and there's a class on Friday as well. But I don't know what we'll do. It is possible we'll look at this story again, especially if it's none of you guys who are there tomorrow and the Friday. But if there's any of you, we could go over this same article again if you wanted to. Definitely could do that. I'm quite happy to do that. Or we could go over to another story. If I flick on this story here, now this is, we looked at this at the very beginning. If you hit the very beginning of this class today, we're looking at this article. We might look at this article about homelessness. So this is a British sort of publication, and its sole interest is about homelessness, but it talks about lots of other things as well. And the idea is, if you buy this publication, you can buy it as a magazine in your hand. I think it's about £1 or £2. A lot of that money goes to help homeless people. So that's the idea. And I think the same thing happens here online, that you subscribe to this magazine online, and the money goes to help homeless people in London. I think it's just London, but it could be the whole of Britain. I've always thought it was London, but it might be the whole of Britain. And so we could look at this article anyway, which is actually quite an interesting article. But that would be tomorrow or the day after, if we didn't want to go back over this article again. So if anyone's here tomorrow and the day after. Okay, so thanks very much.
Thank you, Tony.
If I just finish on this, thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
coming. Hope it was useful. So next week we're doing a different story, the next story along. So thank you very much, Roman Rudin. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
guys.
See
Bye-bye.
you tomorrow.
See you.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
okay. See you, Ruslan, tomorrow then. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye 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 bye.
Bye-bye.